film kicks off with a tense, gut-wrenching flashback to a military mission in Afghanistan. The atmosphere was grim and dangerous. Three captured American Special Forces soldiers, including their captain, Jesse Freeman, were held captive in a small, cramped room by a group of brutal terrorists. In the midst of the horror, a female soldier was about to be put through some serious pain. But before the terrorists could do anything, Jesse stepped up and took her place, putting himself on the line. He was tortured and interrogated, but he refused to give up any information. His silence only made the terrorists more brutal, and they kept pushing for answers. One of the terrorists, however, held back his partner. They needed Jesse's information more than they needed revenge. But while the terrorists were distracted, Jesse used a brilliant move to break free. A massive fight broke out in the tiny room. Jesse moved like a flash, using every bit of his training to neutralize his captors. He managed to get his two teammates, including the female soldier, free and took control of the situation. But then they saw it, a timer on a huge bomb. Jesse tried to disarm it, but they were running out of time. They had no choice but to get out of there. They sprinted out just as the place went up in a massive explosion. The blast was huge, but Jesse was the only one who made it out alive. His two colleagues were killed in the blast. The traumatic event led Jesse to retire from the military to get back to his family. After the traumatic event, Jesse tried to reconnect with his family, but his work as a security guard at a stadium kept him away from home. His wife, Alicia, was worried that their kids were losing their dad. Their son, Ryan, in particular, had no respect for his father's new job. He would constantly make fun of him for being just a security guard. So Jesse decided to change things up. He invited Ryan and his little sister, Mara, to tag along with him to the basketball arena where he worked. The three of them soon made it to the stadium, where they were greeted warmly by a bunch of Jesse's co-workers. Jesse then took his kids on a tour of the arena, but Ryan was not having it. He was completely bored, while his little sister Mara was pumped. Along the way, Jesse introduced his kids to a friendly custodian named Gus and the head of security, Montez. Meanwhile, the stadium owner, Diana, was making a grand entrance with her R&B superstar boyfriend, Millie. They were immediately swarmed by fans and reporters. Without anyone knowing, a group of armed mercenaries had already infiltrated the stadium, posing as Wi-Fi technicians. This was a classic bad guy move, and nobody saw it coming. But behind the scenes, the security guards were being taken out one by one. The mastermind behind it all was a man named Alpha. He was a total pro and had a group of highly trained henchmen with him. They were all carrying special weapons designed for close quarters combat. Long story short, the basketball game was in full swing, and Jesse took his kids to their seats. But then, someone made a commotion, and Jesse had to deal with it since he was the security guard there. In the VVIP suite, Diana, Millie, the governor, and the mayor were all chilling and watching the game. Things went from 0 to 100 in an instant when Alpha and his crew burst in, pretending to be security guards. The governor, completely clueless, told Alpha that he would use his power to have them arrested. In a shocking twist, Alpha took a gun and shot him on the spot.
1 billion reasons in your digit.
Chaos immediately broke out in the suite. In the stands, Ryan was completely into the game, but Mara was starting to get nervous because her dad hadn't come back yet. When she told Ryan, he was a jerk about it, and she got so mad that she decided to go to the bathroom on her own. The public restrooms were packed, so she snuck into the security guard's restroom. It was a bad move. She saw two of Alpha's goons, Sigma and Omega, taking down some security guards. Before she could run away, they grabbed her. Back in the VIP suite, Alpha was threatening Diana into giving him $1 billion. To get the job done, one of his goons, a pro hacker, was already taking over the stadium's communication network. In the blink of an eye, Jesse was in a full-blown panic when he couldn't find Mara. Thankfully, the VIP lanyards his kids were wearing had a tracker built into them. Jesse immediately pulled out his phone and started to follow his daughter's location. Unfortunately, the two thugs who captured Mara were aware of the tracker, so they used it to set up a trap for Jesse. They waited for him in a staff-only room. As soon as Jesse walked in, one of the thugs, a total idiot, mocked Jesse, thinking he was just a regular security guard. He had no clue he was messing with a sleeping giant. As we all expected, Jesse took him down with no effort. Right after, Gus appeared out of nowhere and told Jesse that none of the other security guards looked familiar, which meant they were all imposters. But Jesse's only priority right now was finding his daughter. Back in the VVIP room, a question we all had was finally answered. Diana realized that the man holding them all hostage was Alpha, an ex-CIA agent and a mercenary who had once gotten rid of an entire Muslim family after thinking they were terrorists. Diana was the one who stood for justice for the family and brought Alpha to his lowest point, losing his career, life, and his good name. Alpha was out for revenge for that. His plan was to extort $1 billion from Diana's family, or he would blow up the whole stadium with all the fans in it. Meanwhile, Jesse and Gus made their way to the main security office, but they were too late. Alpha's team had already taken over the place. They had no choice but to retreat to the janitor's room to hide. Jesse was mad that Gus was still joking around, even though they were in a seriously bad situation. After that, they went out to find Mara. Along the way, they found a tough-looking woman named Gamma, tinkering with a mysterious device. Since Gamma wasn't wearing a security badge, they knew she was one of the bad guys. Gus, being the tough guy he is, tried to take her on alone, but Gamma easily took him down.
I got this.
Jesse was able to neutralize Gamma and tried to ask her where his daughter was and who the leader of the team was. Gamma just laughed and told Jesse that everyone in the stadium was going to die after the game ended. After she said that, Gamma pulled the trigger and spewed her brains out of her head, literally. Despite being totally shocked by Gamma's suicide, Jesse and Gus knew they couldn't waste a second. They quickly checked out the device she had left behind and realized it was a bomb. Jesse instantly knew what he was looking at, a bomb rigged with a motion sensor. He figured that when the audience left the stadium, the sensor would be triggered and the whole place would go up in a massive explosion. Calling on his years of experience as a Special Forces operative, Jesse immediately started to disarm it. It was at that very moment that he realized these people were not messing around. They were a serious A-list criminal crew. With the lives of everyone in the building on the line, Jesse was determined to save everyone in the stadium, especially his kids, even if he had to face the danger all by himself. With Gus's help, Jesse started to put together a game plan. They knew the bomb wasn't the only one, so they went on the move, searching for other bombs that were probably hidden all over the stadium. Meanwhile, in the VIP suite, Alpha's rage was at an all-time high. Diana had just found her weak spot, bringing up his past trauma and his family, who were ruined after Alpha was fired from the CIA after years of his service. Furious, Alpha's face turned into a mask of pure rage. He forced Diana to hold a gun and gave her a choice of who to shoot, her boyfriend Millie or the mayor. But before Diana could choose, Alpha's phone buzzed. It was a message that the money transfer had been completed. The relief on his face was short-lived, however, because when he called Gamma, Jesse was the one who answered the phone. The shock on his face was priceless. He immediately knew that he had a major problem on his hands and that his whole operation was in danger. He went into a panic and immediately ordered his entire crew to hunt Jesse down and kill him. Alpha's fear was somewhat eased when his main muscle, Omega, walked in, holding Mara. Mara was Alpha's ace in the hole, his insurance policy against Jesse. But Mara, with all the courage in the world, was a total boss. She looked Alpha straight in the eye and, with a calm voice, answered all of his questions. She even told him that she knew her dad would come and get her. Mara's courage made Alpha even madder. In the stands, the crowd was totally oblivious to the dangers they were in. They were having a blast, cheering and dancing to the music, not knowing that their lives were at risk. During the game, Jesse went to see his son, Ryan, to make sure he was safe. He told Ryan that no matter what happened, he had to stay in his seat until he came back. And for once, Ryan actually listened to his dad. After that, Jesse and Gus went back on their dangerous mission to disarm the bombs all over the stadium. After making sure all the bombs were neutralized, Jesse hauled butt to the announcer's booth, where he found a staff member there. He urgently told the man to activate the evacuation alarm, but before the guy could hit the button, a couple of Alpha's goons barged in and shot him dead. Jesse managed to get away, and by some stroke of luck, ran into his boss, Montez. But when Jesse started to tell him what was going on, Montez pulled a gun on him. Jesse knew right then and there that his boss was a corrupt security guard working for the terrorists. He was a snake, and Jesse had to take him down. Montez, completely clueless that he had just hired a former Special Forces operative, was no match for Jesse and was taken out in a matter of seconds.
You don't know anything about me. Hello?
Jesse then used Montez's communication device to call Alpha. He finally got confirmation that his daughter Mara was being held by the vicious villain herself. Filled with a new sense of purpose, Jesse ran off to save his daughter. Meanwhile, Alpha's hacker finally got all the intel on Jesse. Alpha realized that Jesse was not just a regular security guard. He was a former Special Forces operative with a knack for disarming bombs. Knowing he was dealing with a pro, Alpha ordered Omega to go after Jesse's son, Ryan. But Ryan had his father's courage. Despite being threatened and pushed, he listened to Jesse's last order to stay put no matter what. After failing to grab Ryan, a furious Alpha ordered his heavy hitter, Omega, and 2 other soldiers to hunt Jesse down. But Alpha had completely underestimated his opponent. Using his wits and incredible instincts, Jesse set a trap for the 3 of them and took them all out in a brutal, no-holds-barred fight.
Where's my daughter?
After taking out the 2 goons, Jesse forced Omega to talk. Once he got the information he needed about Mara's location, he showed no mercy and took him out. Then Jesse found Gus to patch himself up. Gus, being a total pro, gave Jesse a great idea: to take a surprise route to the VVVIP suite to catch Alpha off guard. Meanwhile, in the VVVIP room, Alpha hadn't gotten a dime from Diana, and the game was about to end. He was losing his patience and reached for the remote to detonate all the bombs. But before he could hit the button, Jesse came out of nowhere, crashing through the glass. The crash got everyone's attention. At the same time, Gus found the last bomb, and knowing he was running out of time, hauled butt away from everyone with that bomb and ran to an empty part of the arena to make sure no one else would get hurt. Alpha, with a triumphant smirk, pressed the button to detonate the bombs, but only one exploded since the rest had been disarmed by Jesse and Gus. The one Gus had. Somehow Gus managed to escape the explosion. When Alpha realized his plan had gone up in smoke, he went into a full-blown rage, and a brutal final fight broke out. As Jesse was busy taking out the last of Alpha's goons, the villain himself made a break for it, taking Mara with him. Jesse gave chase, not stopping for a second. Meanwhile, the explosion earlier caused a lot of chaos, and everyone started to run for the exits. On the other hand, Jesse's wife, Alicia, who was watching the news about the bomb explosion in the stadium, jumped into her car and sped off to the arena. Back at the stadium, Jesse and Alpha finally had their final showdown. The 2 of them fought in a vicious, no-holds-barred fight on the catwalks high above the basketball court. Ryan, who had stayed in his seat, watched the whole thing play out from below. When Jesse fell, Mara tried to fight back, kicking Alpha, but she was thrown off the catwalk. Luckily, Jesse caught his daughter. But the danger was not over, as a timer on Mara's hand continued to tick down. Just as Alpha was about to leave, Diana appeared out of nowhere, blocking his way with a gun. She then shot him in the knee. Seeing his daughter almost get hurt filled Jesse with a new sense of rage, and he got up and went completely nuts, beating Alpha down. In the middle of the fight, Jesse planted a bomb on Alpha's body. He then threw him off the catwalk, and the bomb detonated in midair, killing him. With Alpha and his crew gone, Jesse and Mara went to find Ryan. Ryan, who had been a jerk about his dad's job, finally saw how amazing his father was and realized that being a security guard was a dangerous job. As Jesse and his kids were leaving the stadium, Diana went up to them and offered Jesse the head of security job. At first, Jesse said no, but Mara convinced him to take the job, saying it was a great way to make some cash. Soon after, Alicia showed up and was relieved to see her family was safe. After a quick reunion, they all went home together.